I will then get the people who made the most interesting sounds to come out and make those sounds, or I might shuffle them up and get some volunteers to come and do this again. And that's where I will have, at the front of the room, Flip running on my iPad and also going through the AV in the room so that they can all see it on the screen, and they don't have their own iPads yet, they're about to get them, but they can see it on the screen and they'll be able to hear as I go. So I've started this in the folder view, which you get to by just pressing the top right hand button there. I've started it there because you need to get the students to create a new project. You don't want them to use someone else's sounds. Half the fun of this is doing it all yourself from scratch. So tap the new project button. It isn't always obvious that a new project's been created to them, although they've got a dialog box that tells you that now, so you'd hope they'd get that. And then the second button down on the right hand side is the basic sampler interface, and you can see it says at the moment I've got pad 8 selected. I'm not quite sure why. That would normally default to pad 1, but anyway, let's just imagine that I'm going to shuffle the cards. This is probably going to go terribly wrong now, and I should just have used something pre-made, but anyway, just to prove that I don't know what's going on. Oh, great. High. All right, so that's quite a high sound. All right, so here we go. All right, so what did I do? I tapped the record button and then I tapped the record button again when I was finished making sounds. Now what I can do is I can move the starting pointer to any one of those, you know, you can see the little spike in the audio waveform. I can also zoom in by pinching to make sure that I'm right close up against it. There we go. That's a pretty awful sound, isn't it? Let's see whether any of these later ones, that last one looks nice and big. Let's just have a look. That's better, that's better. Okay, all right. So I'm now moving the starter and end points around the sound so that it is nice and neatly edited. And I'm not going to make any changes to it at this point. All right, so now let's imagine that I'm picking on another student. Okay, oh man, fruit. So what will happen is, if you get something like this and you don't have very imaginative students, they'll just say a word like apple or pear. So I'll be that I'll be that non-imaginative student. So I'm just going to tap pad 2 and then I'm going to go pear. Pear. All right, see how that goes. That's quite good. It's missed the P of pear. Notice that it automatically that time, it could work out where the sound I probably wanted was. So it automatically moved the in point of the audio frame. And so what I can also do is move the out point. There we go. Do I want to have the P in? See what it sounds like. Oh, I actually quite like that, yeah. Now, sometimes when I'm doing these samples, I'm really trying to make this experiential. I'm showing them the absolute minimum, but sometimes I will edit the two knobs that you can see there at the bottom right, pitch and gain. I don't tend to teach any of the other stuff at this point, but I might just use it and maybe they'll pick up on that. So, and I'm usually trying to look for something that will make some nice percussive sounds. So that's quite a low sound. So I might actually, you know, make that lower, and I might even take that. Actually, now I've turned it up, it's sounding nicely like a hi-hat sound. So. Starting to work. Okay, third one, again, just to put myself in a situation I normally put my students in. That's a good thing to do, isn't it? A bird sound, right. Okay, so I'm going to tap pad 3, squawk! I think that is the exact sound that some students make on a video that I'm going to show you in a second. So, Yeah, that's really beautiful. If you redraw it. All right, so okay, yeah, that was dreadful. Anyway, you get the idea. So very, very quickly, maybe I should have whistled or something with that bird sound to get a little bit more variation than just using my own voice. But it's enough, isn't it, to get them started? And remember, it's their sounds. It's their sounds that we're using there. So yeah, that's it. At that point, I give them the iPads. I make sure that they have started a new project. By the way, if I'm working with young kids, primary, elementary school, or maybe, you know, very early middle school, I'll actually set up all of the iPads myself, you know, add 10 minutes to my prep time to make sure they're all ready to go. And then I simply say, right, see you back in, you know, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how old they are and how long I've got. And give them as much freedom as I can. I've done this in schools where we've gone over to the gym and made great recordings with, you know, machinery and bouncing basketballs off interesting surfaces and all sorts of things. And I've done it in places where we couldn't really leave the music classroom or the classroom that we were in, so we just had to make use of what's there. When I'm doing it here with pre-service music teachers, obviously they're in a conservatorium, so that's kind of great because they can go around and get musical sounds as well as other fun sounds. Welcome back. I hope that you've managed to find 9 interesting sounds. So, following Jeff Robbins' great advice that one must always do the project oneself first, before giving it to students, I naturally spent my 15 minutes sitting here in my office making some more recordings. And I even named them. If you press this save button here, it brings up a keyboard and allows you to name the samples. So I've got the 3 that I made in front of you before: drink bottle, pear, and squawk. And I've also got me tapping a mug, me thumping on the table, which I've pitched down a bit, me ruffling some book pages, me shutting a glasses case. Could probably also go down if I wanted it to. Me blowing an E on a recorder. And me, I was actually trying to jingle coins, but then I dropped one and got this rather fabulous sound. I quite like that. There are the 9 that I got. Were we all together, you wouldn't be looking at the 9 I got. We would be going around. What I do is, so I'm in my office, so I'll just jump up and get it. I use this little beauty. It's been all around the country with me now. My little Bluetooth speaker, which actually I don't use in Bluetooth mode. I use it in old plugging in to the headphone jack mode, so that I can hear, or the students can hear their sounds through a much nicer speaker than you've got on an iPhone or an iPad, because they're horrible speakers, and this gives them some low end and makes them realise they've got some cool stuff. Now, some of them, because when I've shown it, I've been playing some rhythms already, some of them will come back, and when they share their sounds, they'll actually start playing you some rhythms and doing a bit of finger drumming. That's great, but it's not what's demanded. At the moment, that first class is all just about getting 9 sounds that they're happy with. But yes, encourage them, obviously, if they do start playing sounds. And yeah, so we go through that. I let everyone do it. That's pretty much the end of the first class. Second class, and I'm thinking again here about sort of, you know, the older end of middle school. What I'll do is I'll get the cards out again, and we'll do the sampling activity or some variations that I make up on the sampling activity, but we'll add boom whackers to, sorry, my computer is forgetting that it's in focus mode and sending me messages. We'll add boom whackers to make bass lines and get people to trigger those by pointing at the boom whacker holders as well. I'll quite often get out a bunch of bass instruments. So I play trombone. I've got a really nice monosynth, Arturia monosynth in the music room. You know, a few other things like that. in case people want to think about the role of a bass line, which is somewhere that I go. And then when we get back to playing these pieces, I'll just ask people to first just play around with their lines again. So the next button down on the right hand side here is the pads playing mode. So when you don't want to be using all of those sampler bits that I was showing you before, and it's quite good if you want to play around with the sounds to do it in this mode, because they're bigger to hear, but in addition to being, so bigger to hear, bigger on the screen, so easier to hit, dear me. They're easier to hit, but in addition to that, you can't accidentally, you know, record over or change a setting as you can when you're still here in this sampler view. So I'll get them to do that and just play around with their sounds, and then really the only thing that I show them in letter 2 is how to record that, which isn't just as simple as pressing the record button. Let me just show you what I mean. So if that's my okay, that's a really nice little rhythm that I've got going there with those different sounds. So what I might do is, you notice that as I'm doing it, I'm establishing a tempo. And I love this way of doing it, using the natural kind of flow of the sound. Some sounds will actually have their own kind of inherent sense of beat or beat subdivision in them. And so students will actually end up, rather than, you know, quite often when you start writing in a sequencer, in a DAW, in some notation software, you know, using computer programs, students are very stuck with whatever the default metronome is. Why so much student music is written in 100 BPM or 120 BPM, because those are the default speeds of the music, tempos. So what I do is, yeah, get them to, and then think about what the tempo of that is. And then tap on the cog at the top, second down on the top left, sorry, second down on the left, so nearly at the top, and tap that tempo. So now they're actually thinking about the beat that they want to make in an abstract way before they record it. And then we can turn that off by pressing on the cog again. And now we're ready to press the record button. Do we have metronome on? Yes, just checking that the metronome is on. That's also in here because obviously we want to play along with the metronome. So we press the record button, which is the red button as you might expect, sorry, the round button. It turns red, and then to start recording we hit the play button, and it's just going to loop by default over 1 bar, so I don't need to worry about exactly where I come in. Press the red button off to stop it recording, and it will carry on playing. So if I wanted to play around with some other sounds now, I can play around with that safely without overdubbing until I'm happy, and then press the red button again to overdub. Beautiful. So I do have over here on the left hand side some undo and redo buttons, the little curly arrows, so that can be very useful. And that's it. That's all I show them that in that second week. The exception to that is I just want them to record a rhythm, and I literally will give them a whole lesson just to do that and to share, and then I'll go around with this again so we can hear them all through a nice big speaker and sounding as fabulous as possible. The exception to that is that if stuff comes from them, I'll go with it. So for instance, sometimes when you're playing, you're getting the students to play their things when they bring back, you know, you'll notice something like that that's been pitched down. if there's something that's been pitched down, then that's a great opportunity to say, oh wow, you've done something there. I have got a sound in here. Was it this one? Where I actually, went on and added some effects. So I don't talk about effects at this point normally, but what I would do very often in class is that I would, if a student has used an obvious effect, and a filter maybe is not such an obvious effect, but a delay is a very obvious effect, then again, I might just say to the student, oh, how did you make that sound? And let them show it. Maybe I'll run over to my iPad, which is on the AV, and show that on the big screen as well, so that they can see that straight away. So yeah, if there's an opportunity to reinforce student learning that's going on without me having been involved in teaching them that, then I'll go with that, because then they can quickly learn from one another. Okay, so hopefully now you've all made your own rhythms, and obviously, again, as I say, I'd be heading around with my speaker, we'd be listening to those, cheering people. If learnings come up, get students to show them and share them. And you know, maybe there's a way that we could share our sample-based compositions through the ISME website. That would be quite cool. But anyway, I'm just going to show you a couple of other things that come up over the next few weeks, and then share some other information and resources with you. But essentially, had we all been together for an hour today, allowing for, you know, Q&A and things like that, that's what we would have done. We would have all simply made 9 recordings and programmed a beat, and I would have shown you the rest of the unit of work and things that I do with the students to then develop this over another 5 weeks or so. But just to show you a couple of interesting things, I'm going to click on my recorder sample again, and then I'm going to click on the keyboard, and I have to click keys. What that does, oh that's interesting, I said before that I played an E. It's decided that it's an A flat, so there you go. That's why that key is yellow. But yeah, basically I wanted to just show you this because resolved. So basically, any pitch sound that we want to use like that, and I could of course do this as well with, if we go to the, it's kind of a little bit like a bass line, isn't it? So if I go to that, yeah, so anything like that I can use as a pitched instrument. Now I'm focusing specifically on bass instruments because the way that I go with this, the way that I've structured it, thinking about what middle school and high school students can do, I'm really interested in them first creating a rhythm and then thinking about a bass line. Now that's not to say that they couldn't use this with higher pitch notes and create chords and melodies and get super musical. It's just not what the focus of my designed units of work so far has been. I'm really interested in those two elements. I think also because those two elements are in, you know, so many genres from, you know, rock and roll through to hip hop. Think how many hip hop instrumentals just have really amazing grooves with bass and drums and then some rapping over the top. So I think you can get somewhere really substantial and really musical by focusing in on those two elements. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that because that's quite cool. Pitch. And then the other thing that some of you will have realized, if we go into, if I click either velocity or automate or one of these other options in here, is that that's where you can see the length of the what's the word, the loop, which is at the moment 1 bar long, and you can, you know, go in and edit that. No, sorry, that's change a channel, but you can go in and make that longer or shorter. We've got a mixer here on the right hand side, and then over here is where we can organize our song into order, you know, so even if I've got just 1 bar patterns, I could create a song made out of different combinations of those patterns. So you simply drag the patterns that you've created, and I've only got one so far, but you just drag them over onto the right hand side, and then that allows you to then organise a song. There's a setting that I have to change, and I've just forgotten where that is, to make it play the whole song rather than just the pattern. But you get the idea. So those are things that we will cover through the unit of work. I mentioned before that in the sampler section I won't explicitly teach the FX, but quite often the students will get there at some point during it. Oh, and of course the reverse button as well, to hear that in reverse. So that's that.